Not hearing any sound. Of course you're not, because I'm doing. I hate my life. I hate this. I hate everything about today. Oh my god! Sorry about that, guys. We're here with Jessie Gender. Been sitting here having a conversation. Hope to God you guys continue to say no audio because there's like a 30-minute delay because that is how this works. But we were talking about how COVID-19 has been keeping us in our houses and apartments, but that's okay because we're used to that anyway. Because we're Trek fans and. That's what we're born
where
with.
we live.
Yep. Says no audio viewer side. You should actually be hearing gender. Yeah, you should be hearing it now.
There we are.
Yeah. Everybody wins now. So really, we're going to be talking about just whatever. You guys can bring it up in the comments. We were going to spend a little bit of time talking about the end of Picard. Jessie had a couple of ideas that I really wasn't thinking about. I'm not completely sure how they're going to end it. Honestly, if this was classical Trek or nostalgia Trek, I honest to God would expect that the Starfleet Armada or Task Force or what they're calling it something weird. What are they calling it?
Yeah, Fleet. I think it's just Fleet.
Oh, is it Fleet? I thought they were calling it something weird, but anyway.
I don't know. Picard may have said so. The fucking fleet, maybe. I don't know.
Fleet.
Whatever. Whatever the admiral would.
Yeah, the admiral comes on. The fucking fleet is here.
We're fucking here, Picard. That's what I want. That's how I hope this ends. Just like the fucking fleet's here, Picard.
You're fucking heroes. But yeah, I would expect them to show up, but I honestly don't know. I'll give it to the writers. I don't know what to expect when it comes to if Starfleet's going to show up or not.
I think the only thing I could definitely say with I had an idea that we talked about off camera, but the only thing I definitely say with the fleet is I'm almost sure we'll see Riker in it.
You think so?
Well, yeah, because they set up that there's so many Chekhov's guns that they're hopefully going to fire in the finale, but like the one of like Riker just happened to mention is like, oh yeah, I'm in the reserve, so they can call me back anytime. So I'm presuming that he'll be called back because he's close by. I mean, I'd be surprised. That would be the one thing I would be surprised if they didn't do it.
Right.
Just because they set it up well. The other one that we were talking about off camera was, and I know a few people have been talking about, is that Worf may potentially show up.
Right.
But
yeah, I know I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't know. Please.
You were saying he was captain of the Enterprise in the novel because I'm pretty sure they never said it in the series.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't remember or not, but in the novel, he becomes the captain of the Enterprise after Picard leaves to do the fleet, and then presumably the F or whatever they're on now. But there was also some hints that Worf may show up elsewhere, like StarTrek.com or on their YouTube channel released a Worf video late last week, and then the Discovery Writers Room Twitter was tweeting about Worf the other day. Right. So there's, I mean, it's all conjuncture and it might just be coincidence, but there are hints that Worf may make an appearance in the finale, and it would make sense if he's part of the fleet. Right. So, what
you also had a theory about Picard that hasn't come out. I thought it was interesting. I don't know if I buy it, but I think it was interesting. You want to tell them what you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's two options. I mean, kind of playing off the same idea. There's again another Chekhov's gun. There's the Chekhov's gun of the golem, the body that Soon was working on, and clearly, and then Agnes Jurati is going to be working on it, presumably to put Soon in the body. But we know that she knows that Picard's dying from earlier on in the finale, so she may just to save Picard's life, both from his syndrome and then also from whatchamacallit, from just shit going down. She may download him into the synth body. And then my guess would be that would be if they went that route, he would be the cliffhanger, like he's stuck in a synth body, maybe played by a different actor. Or actually, what would be fun, this one would probably be more of a stretch, but it would actually be really fun if they did this. If the body turns out to be like a Brent Spiner body, like a Data body, but then you put Picard in it, so you have Brent Spiner playing Picard, which would be kind of fun. Yeah. And then next season they'd put him back in a real life body and back in Patrick Stewart at some point.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I don't think they'll cure. I mean, it would be a mistake to cure the syndrome.
Oh yeah,
they may actually do that, but I think it would be a mistake because as horrible as this sounds, that is a good natural out in case anything happens. So, I mean, if I was writing Picard, every season I would have a few extra scenes that may never be used, hopefully would never be used, but would be plug and played in case something happened where Picard or where Sir Patrick Stewart couldn't act anymore, or if he passed away, because he's pretty old. Not that
with COVID going around, I was like, protect Patrick Stewart, save him, lock him away,
save him. Put him on the International Space Station. But yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. Just in case anything would happen, I would make it so you could at least finish the series where it just doesn't. They don't just walk up and say, "Oh yeah, did you hear Picard died? Yeah, let's just continue going." Have it away. So I don't know that I would get rid of the syndrome. They may. That would definitely be Trek. But with season 2 coming out, I don't know that they should do that.
Yeah, I mean, they said they have a 3-season arc, so my presumption would be that the ending is just he's gonna probably get really, really bad. Like over the course of the 3 seasons, by the end of season 3, he'll just be like super far gone and having all the different weird, crazy visions and dementia, and then just to go out on a high note, he sacrifices himself for whatever the current story arc is at that point, in order to not have to succumb to the disease, which would be a decent way for him to go.
Well, what'll happen is if they do kill him, I think they should. I think the arc, the season should have him die at the end. But die with a better Federation than what he left it as.
Die for something rather than like the world's shit, so I guess I'll die here.
Right. Well, but Phantom Menace will be saying, "Well, we told you he was going to die. They destroyed it. They hate it." I don't know if they did it right. Having him die in the series isn't a bad thing. I don't think. It just depends on how they do it. I don't think they should continue it if he dies, though. In my opinion, if you're going to have a series based on a person, I don't know. What do you think? Would you be okay with them continuing if they killed him off?
No, I mean no. I think. I heard someone say that their thing would be like, oh, they renamed the La Sirena, not the La Sirena. They renamed La Sirena to the Picard, and that becomes the name of the series. That would be, in my opinion, that would be kind of lame. Right. I would very much agree. I would much rather have just end the series with him, and then if you wanted to like tell more stuff in the like 24th, 25th century, like maybe you have some characters crossover, like Rios or Girardi or Raffi make appearances on whatever spin-off show you make. I would do the 3 seasons and then end the season 3 with his death and just make it very poignant, make it a tearjerker, make us all cry, make us sad, and don't just end with him falling off a bridge. So,
and then being buried in rocks, and then you just see the Serena going off like we did in Generations. He's just buried in rocks, and then that's what they did to Kirk.
Well,
the old Kirk. Give him the Kirk.
That was a disappointing way to go. Yeah. Give him an off-screen romance for all of 10 seconds. He rides a horse and then dies.
I don't know. It would take some doing, and people wouldn't like it. But if they wanted to do a spin-off and call it the La Sirena or something, I don't know. I wouldn't be against necessarily them continuing with the crew. I just don't know how they'd do it without it seeming, as you said, like lame. Or something like that.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Or just feeling like forced, like just trying to force name recognition onto it. It's like, oh look, it's called Picard, but we don't have Picard in it. Picard's there in spirit. It would just be it would be kind of dumb and weird and kind of off-putting and kind of ruin the entire point of doing like a character spin-off show to begin with. And that's kind of like the danger of like this sort of thing is like you're focusing on just one character, and so like what do you do if you lose him in some way, like God forbid Patrick Stewart passes away or anything like that?
Just something stupid like wherever there's justice, wherever we bring justice, Picard will be there. That's how they justify it. That's how they justify keeping the show. He's here. Oh my God, he's here in our hearts.
The real Picards are the ones we made along the way.
The real Picard is the one we made along the way. And then they do that. They have the body. No, they do. They have a new actor, and it's like you said, it's a body and it's a new actor, and they just say it's Picard. That the real Picard is the one we made along the way.
Oh my god! Or
it's
they
so-
do that in that, I don't know if you ever watched what episode of Scrubs where they just like have his corpse just in the background of the ship, just like hanging there.
Or they oh man, or they CGI. This is stupid. They never do this. They CGI him and then take all of his like clips and they just add the words in there, like from all the episodes.
Oh, like
they just,
like Chef in that one episode of South Park.
yeah, exactly.
Engage the warp engines, Captain.
That would be so disrespectful. Oh man, I want him to do it now. I would praise it. I would do that.
I would watch the crap out of that.
I would too. That would be the best. That would beat DS9 hands down. Oh my god, that's horrible. How would you do that to a person?
Oh dear God.
Oh man.
Oh, don't make me laugh too hard. I'm still recovering from surgery.
The interesting thing, I think, and a lot of people, deep fake Picard. Yeah, I'd watch a deep fake Picard in a second. I'd watch deep fake.
I mean, they already did that with Star Trek Nemesis.
Yeah. Yeah, they well, and they also de-age him in X-Men all the time too. So I mean, it's not like it can't be done. But you know, what I think will be interesting is if they do. I don't know how many seasons they're going to do. I believe you when you say 3 seasons, but
I think they said they had a 3 season. Now they could always change that, but I think they said they had a 3 season.
It'll be interesting if they try to destroy the Federation to make it fit with Discovery, because I do believe that they're going to go in that way or that route. So I'd be curious to see how they go about doing it. You know,
Possibly. I mean, I just wonder about that because I mean, there's a part of me that's like I would like a little bit of a Discovery tie-in. I mean, it doesn't need to be so direct. Like I know people were saying like, oh, the stuff from the admonition, whatever, the Romulan vision stuff was going to be Control. I don't think it needs to be as direct in that. So I would like some Discovery tie-ins. But I mean, like what? Discovery is going to be set 500 years after the end of this. So I mean, you can start seeing seeds of it, but it's like 500 years is a long time to go. I mean, I presume there would be some ups and downs in between there.
Well, if they did that, it would be a straight Andromeda tie-in, because
I never saw Andromeda.
So effectively, what happened is the I forget what it was, the Confederation or Galactic Republic or whatever the hell it was called. They were destroyed in basically an extended war, but it was like extended. It was like 6 months or whatever. So what happened is you had the Nietzscheans and then the good guys. I forget what they're called. People are going to be Commonwealth. You had the Nietzscheans and the Commonwealth, and the Nietzscheans were a part of the Commonwealth, but it's a long story. Anyway, the Nietzscheans decided to attack the Commonwealth. They fought each other for 6 months to a year or whatever, and both sides just utterly destroyed the other. And ultimately, there wasn't any big power to take over, so there was a huge vacuum. So, in theory,
Gotcha.
they could do that. They could have like a Starfleet civil war that basically just left it somewhat broken.
Implodes.
Yeah. And then it just leaves it open. So, I don't. It'd be interesting. I think you could. I heard Ketwalski talk about how maybe he was going to. I don't know if it's Ketwalski or not, but someone was talking about how they were going to try to add open borders to it or whatever. Maybe the synths were coming, and they said, you know, part of this is because we all have borders or walls or some stupid stuff like that, and so we just need to stop existing as entities. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, that would be. I mean, that's possible. I mean, that's that would be kind of like a direct sort of political statement, which I would love, honestly. But I don't know. It just seems weird. Like, I don't think you would have like Klingons being okay. It's like, yeah, let's get rid of borders. It's fine. It's whatever. But there was they could also be kind of using the idea from there was a pitch years ago after Star Trek Enterprise went off the air called Star Trek Federation that was pitched by Brian Singer, which, you know, he's not exactly the great person to crib from, but the concept was basically that the Federation became much more militaristic and then became super isolationist, and the Federation essentially fell apart. And then there's a big event, like they get like a 9/11 style attack or some sort of like something big happens, then it causes the Federation to try and want to reach out and create a treaty again. So theoretically, if they wanted to go that route, it would be a really dark way for, if they wanted to so directly tie into Discovery. If they wanted to go a really dark route with Picard, is that this season ending is like the synths do manage to contact the like super synths, whatever we want to call them, and then they come in, start wiping crap out, and then season 2 is basically Picard trying to be like, let's try and stop them from killing everybody, basically like Mass Effect 3, essentially. And then maybe they even fail or only push it back a little bit, and then that leads into what happens on Discovery, with the Federation sort of having become much smaller because they've basically been pretty much wiped out by whatever the synth thing was.
Right. Yeah, I don't know that I maybe. I don't.
Yeah, it's really complicated. It'd be really fucking depressing.
Yeah.
But potentially.
I mean, Picard can be depressing depending on how you look at it, but yeah.
But they try to at least go the route of like it starts dark and goes light. Like that's. I tend to think
Which part of it was the lightest for you? Was it watching Echet's eye getting pulled out? Was it?
I particularly
murder someone, or maybe when the lightest part for me was when Agnes straight up murders a man in cold blood.
With Hugh getting his knife in the neck.
Oh yeah, the jugular. Did you like that? Was that particularly light for you? Was that the part
warmed my heart with his blood?
Yeah, with his blood warmed the cockles of your heart.
But no, I do think like if they do have a like 3-season arc, then my hope would be that their goal would be like this season's the darkest, and then it progressively gets lighter. Or like this season's the darkest, it gets slightly darker in season 2, and then ends brighter in season 3. If that's the goal, I mean, people may disagree with me, but I generally seem to think that for all of its failures, that the attempt was in Discovery season 1, while it started off super dark, the aim was to try and angle to have it be like, oh, this is how we get to sort of a more utopian, brighter future. Now, we could argue all day whether that was successful or not, but I think the goal was to start dark and then get brighter as they went. And I think that's their goal with Picard as well.
Which part of Discovery do you think it got brighter? Was it when Starfleet Admiralty decided to completely destroy a planet, or the dead baby head that was being shown to people? Was that?
I mean, the baby head. I hate babies, so I'm all dead baby
babies. So that was. It was basically the best moment of your life. It was, oh my god!
I was like, this is the trek that I signed.
This is the trek I signed up for. This
is my utopia.
Oh man, yeah. Agnes, absolutely. Someone said she didn't murder him in cold blood. Absolutely, Agnes murdered him in cold blood.
Oh yeah, she straight up did.
Yeah, I mean there is you could have some justification. It's not just some justification. 7 of 9, I think. I call her a murderer because I think definitionally she is, but she definitely had justification, and there was a reason why she did it, and you could empathize.
She is definitely a murderer.
Yeah, but that's my thing. With 7 of 9, you can empathize and understand and see how that may be pragmatic and justifiable. We still don't have a good reason for why Agnes decided just to go up and straight up kill. Anyway, I'm not going to let someone.
No. I think you have. Because this kind of leads into what we were. The other thing I was talking about earlier, which was like, we don't really have a big a good justification. Like the only justification we could really have would be that like the forced mind meld forced her to do it, or the admonition vision that she saw forced her to do it, but it's kind of vague and not really clear. And then this episode kind of like last episode, they broken pieces, they kind of Picard admonishes her for it. It's like, why did you do that? It's all your fault. She feels all this guilt. And then this episode, they kind of forgive her, like part 1 they forgave her a little bit, and I think it's because they were trying to yada yada. It's like, oh, you weren't right mind, so it's okay, but it doesn't feel very clear. Yeah. And I think that's my problem. It's like I could buy that it's like it wasn't her fault because of the forced mind meld.
Right.
but they don't make that clear at any point, so it just becomes this kind of muddled thing that just ends up making it look like they're just letting her have a pass when she was fully responsible.
Right. The it's interesting because again, it's completely contradictory. I think in a couple of ways. It's like you said, if it was because the mind meld, it was some kind of hidden notion to kill him. That isn't shown or told very well. If she did it because she was scared of what she saw, then I don't know why she didn't commit suicide immediately after, because she was a vital and key piece of the creation of the synths. And so if he's too dangerous to exist in the world, she's too dangerous to exist in the world. We even know she's too dangerous to exist in the world because she's helping them now create another synthetic life form, right?
Yes.
And back
Which,
to that,
makes no sense.
yeah, and back to that, if it was some kind of order done by Commander O, then at that point I don't. She's a threat, because what other orders could Commander O give her? You know what I'm saying? So if they're saying, well, you weren't in your right mind because of what Commander O did to you, and if it was a direct order from Commander O, what other Trojan horses are there? Or if you're just insane because you saw a message that you shouldn't, you're still a danger because that insanity can still impact you. You're not. They didn't free her from it, from what it looked like. So
yeah, no, I agree. It's just inconsistent with that arc, because it's like, because I could even see them arguing is like, why off, because like, oh, she needs to like find out where Soji is, or figure out where the planet is, and like it's like O's backup plan to creepy Romulan Narissa lady, but then she like heals herself. Like it's played like her curing herself of the tracker also cured her of the mind wipe, which would make no sense whatsoever.
Well, she even said that there's a block, so she couldn't help him after she did that, and that she didn't want to.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just not clear in any way, shape, or form. That's why I think that's the biggest problem. And it's just like, right. Yeah, I really have nothing more to say other than like they just need to make it a much clearer point of like what was causing her to do these things. Was it the mind meld? Was it like her being actually convinced by the mind meld, or was it like some sort of pseudo control that they had over her?
And then either way, they don't address it, because it's like they do just let her go free and clear. It's like, okay, well that plot point's done. You're fine. We've read the script. You won't do anything else.
Yeah, should be in season 2, and we'll just be part of the crew. Yeah, it'll be fine.
Yeah, because I mean, again, if they think Commander O put something in her, then they need to watch her. If they think it was because she was insane, then they still need to have backups there in case that insanity once again overtakes her.
Yeah, and then and they also make the point, like the other thing too is, one of the things that weirded me out was like at the beginning of the finale, part 1 of the finale, like she walks out onto the bridge and she's like, oh, we're not going to Starbase or Deep Space 12. I'm like, why isn't she locked in her room? Right. Like, why can't she just like walk up on the bridge and no one seems to care?
Right.
But, so
it's like, all right, you're gonna be fine. We trust you.
You just murdered a person in cold blood, and another person that you've shown willingness to want to murder is also on the ship. So yeah, should be fine.
Yeah, the main reason, the thing that you think will destroy all life and that you have to stop at all costs is here too. But it's gonna be.
It's cool.
You have said that you're okay. So that's it's good enough for us. It's what.
I mean. We're talking about a very trusting society, so come on.
I'll tell you, an interesting, one of the things a lot of people get upset about, I knew they would as soon as I saw it. I'm not upset about it. It's not accurate, but the mind meld with the android, there's a couple of things to that. A lot of people will point to the fact that Spock mind melded with, I forget the name.
The thing way back in...
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, back in TOS, I forget what it was.
Well, not only did he mind meld with that, he actually mind melded through a wall, too.
Oh, yeah.
I get that point. I get what they're saying. my only counter to that, it doesn't bug me all that much, but my only counter to that is that the original series is not as the writing is not as sophisticated. I would say it's still a more earlier way, black and white way of writing things, or campy way. I think I would say more
or like
sophisticated.
short,
I'm sorry.
and not even like lack of sophistication, but like a lack of rules. Like they were kind of making it up as they went along. I mean that's kind of all writing to a degree. Like canon always is getting rewritten, in my opinion.
Right.
But they had less like clear rules of like how their universe worked at that time. So I mean, it makes sense that there would be some sort of wonkiness to it.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't know how you feel about it. I didn't really care all that much. It was, I mean, once you accept that this is different writers for a niche, and you accept the fact that there has always been stuff like this, we just notice it now. Or maybe not even that we notice it now. I think people notice it then. We just can say it on a video in less than 30 seconds now. Is more what changed. I don't know. How did you feel about that? It didn't really bother me all that much. I don't think it's consistent. It didn't bother me.
Actually, that was actually the one thing as I was watching the episode, because I do my reviews right after I watch an episode. I literally was taking notes as I was doing it, and that was actually the one thing that actually threw me out in the entire episode while I was watching it. I was like, I don't know if I completely buy it, but I mean, I can make it work in my head. It was just sort of like weird how they stated it, because Soon sort of comes up and he states, you know, oh, she's had a really big love of Vulcan culture, so she taught herself the mind. And just phrasing it that way was just weird to me, because it's like everyone can just learn the mind meld. I mean, it's very clearly stated that like that it's just a thing their species can do.
Right. Well, they had
so it's like maybe
that was a point of it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Well, no. If they just had made, I mean, I can make it work where it's just like I could easily buy that, like, you know, these synths tinker and mess with their internal wirings all the time. So you could just have her say, it's like, oh, so she wired herself to be able to do it. It just the way it was phrased of like taught herself to do it was just weirdly phrased. And so it's one of those like, it's clear like these synths are much more organic in nature. I mean, so like the actual Soji has mucus and blood and all that crap. So I could buy that there's like enough organic stuff going on that they can mine, but it just weirdly phrased, which again, I can make it work and it doesn't bother me all that much. It just bothered me in the moment of it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they could have phrased it different. Like you said, like some people are pointing out, they could have said, you know, we tried different genomes. So because she was interested in Vulcans, she actually has some Vulcan physiology or whatever. Or you could have just said we've developed the ability to read minds by touching people. Because I mean, they could do that too. They could sit down and they could have the person lay down and, you know, put a light over her and pretend that way, or they could just touch her, you know, shorthand for it. So you're right. I guess maybe you just accept it as an odd way of phrasing it.
Yeah, and I mean, the other way too is like, you could have even done it another way too. And this is, like I said, probably harping on a point that doesn't need to be harped on it as much. But the other way you could have done, like the admonition was supposed to be for synthetics.
Right.
So maybe it's just like, oh, well, I can touch her and get a reading off of her. Like even that would have been like, oh yeah, I get it. Cool.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They could have, again, and that's what I was trying to say. I got a little distracted. Yeah. Sorry, but they could have just said, you know, we have technology to read minds now, or to get, or they could say while scanning her, could have determined that, like you said, you know, it was an electronic signal, or it was a signal meant for synthetics or androids, and then they're like, oh, well, we have the ability to somehow pull, you know, those types of messages or whatever. I mean, again, it just, I don't know. Ryan, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, go. No, that was all. I was just agreeing. So.
Yeah. Ryan, any opinion on the AI Soong being? We were talking about that before. I think we talked about it on here. We're not completely sure who it's going to be. I thought that it was going to be Maddox. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they bring Maddox back. But Jessie was saying it may be Picard, or didn't you have someone else?
Yeah, I mean the other one would have been. I mean, I think I mentioned it already earlier in the stream. I don't know if I said it on or off, but the fun option would be it's a Brent Spiner bot, and it gets revealed in the last moment. Like this is if I'm spitballing a fun plot for the finale. It's a Brent Spiner body, and then we learn that Soon is actually Lore, who transferred himself into an organic. And then he's like, well, if the synths are all coming, I'm gonna fuck off back into a synth body.
Right.
And then so it's like a sort of him trying to go into that, but at the last minute, like Girardi puts Picard into it,
Right.
and then you have fun with Picard, Brent Spiner having to play Picard for a little while. Which honestly, I think that would be just a ton of to just have Brent Spiner just being like, well, this is very strange. I seem to be in Brent Spiner's body. It's much more agile. I don't.
It's just him to its
Yeah.
What I think would be interesting. I don't think they're going to do it, but you remember there were a lot of rumors about Q coming back and whatnot. I think it would be interesting. I honestly think it would be fun if at the height you have this I don't know, whatever, the robots, the AI of destruction coming down. It looks like it's going to be the end. Maybe you had Starfleet show up and was trying to help everybody. Everybody's dying. All of a sudden, you just hear a flash, and you have Picard back in like the original where he was originally judged. You have him, old him, and you have John Delancey as Q, but do not try to make him look young or his original self. Have him old too. Have Picard call it out and have Q say that he just wanted to match Picard to make him feel better about being so old, or something like that. Have some fun with it.
I'm sure that's the fun joke to do. I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about CGI or makeup or anything like that. You just make a joke out of it.
It would fit Q perfectly, being like, hey, I didn't want to be conscious there, Picard.
I think it'd be interesting to have that circle around, like the finale, the season finale of Picard, circle around to the beginning of TNG,
and also the end of TNG too. It'd be kind of because you all good things as well.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it there, or you could do it at the series finale too. At season.
Well, they go back to the judge's chamber in All Good Things, I believe, don't they?
No, he doesn't go back.
I thought they did.
No, I'm almost 100%.
That's maybe I haven't seen it. I haven't seen All Good Things in a bit, so I might be wrong. I thought he did though.
No, I think he's just in a white. No, because they go back at the beginning of time and they're looking at the beginning of man or whatever, like the ooze coming down. And
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he goes back to it. Anyway, it'd be cool. It'd be interesting. I'd love that to be. It'd be cool as a season finale, but honestly, I'd love that to be the series finale. The series finale, somehow, that's how I'd write it. The series finale would end in Q's chambers with the final verdict. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and then they kind of walk off together, and that's sort of like the last scene.
Yeah, I'm not sure how exactly, what I'd do. And I'm not sure exactly how I'd do it. But here's what happened. Ultimately, Picard would arrive. And it looked like it would be like the end or whatever. And Picard sacrifices himself, like you said, right?
Yeah.
He's pulled into Q's chambers, or pulled in the chambers. And Q says, you know what? I am now ready to pass judgment. And you were right. The reason why we were passing judgment is because one day humanity will become like the Q. Or he says, you were half right. The Q actually are evolved humans, or something like that. And then... He tells Picard, congratulations, you've now become a part of the Q. And so Picard in history, it looked like he died because he sacrificed himself. But in actuality, he just joined the continuum. That's how that is exactly.
And that would actually be a very touching way to do it, because then you get the have your cake and eat it too. Like, he's dead and he has a sacrifice, and it's like a touch kind of reunion and nice little end cap to bring it all the way back to the end. Yeah, that's actually very sweet. I think that would be a very sweet.
Well, and the other thing too you can do with it is you can whatever the sacrifice is, maybe you can make it a little bit because if you want to tie it to Discovery, maybe the sacrifice is supposed to help and make it better. Whatever is about to happen, like destruction of Starfleet Federation or whatever. But you don't know. he hopes it's going to work, but you really don't know. And then they just leave it in the air. Like Picard asks, "Does it work?" And Q says, "You'll have till the end of time to see if it does or what." And then just leave it open, and that way you could make up your own. Like if you want it to fit Discovery, where it's ultimately it didn't help, and you'd go to Discovery, or maybe it did work and something else destroyed it. I don't know. I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that'd probably be a good way to do it because I'm curious. I mean, yeah, that's going to be the biggest thing, I think, and the biggest like hurdle that Discovery season 3 is going to have to do, because it's sort of like it's going to have to be like vague and specific at the same, which is going to be kind of like I think their biggest hurdle in season 3 is like, yeah, the Federation's gone for vaguely undefined reasons. We figure it out.
We figure the well, the other thing could be interesting is if they do. I think if they decide to have a civil war, because once Commander O is determined to be Romulans, if after the synths are dealt with, the second season is about, oh my god, we can't trust Romulans anymore, and you could see a dissolution. Because I've always thought that. I've had that theory. I don't know if you've heard that or not, but honestly,
no.
I think the most reasonable outcome after Deep Space Nine is either a massive amount of civil strife or some form of a civil war within Starfleet and the Federation.
I mean, you already see that in the book, in Last Best. That's actually a decent part of that book, is the civil unrest by the border planets of the Federation, because they basically get all upset because they have to sort of handle all the incoming Romulan refugees basically coming to their planet and being like, all right, here's the Romulan refugees, deal with them, see you. And then they bring up, like, it's meant to frame as like this. I mean, the book frames it as they're not entirely wrong; they're just a little bit racist in how they do it, sort of kind of having a more direct political allegory. But the point that they're making isn't entirely incorrect. That the sort of inner planets, quote unquote, of like Earth, Andoria, Tellar, and Vulcan, are all kind of get all the glory and all the attention, and then all the outer planets kind of have scrambled to have to deal with whatever the Federation says. I mean, we've seen that even in this series so far. Like the Maquis were all basically dealing with the fact that the Federation basically said, screw you guys to the border. Yeah. So that would be, if you wanted to have like a natural civil war that's sort of like coming out of like issues that we've seen on the series, that would make perfect sense, that it's sort of like a inner versus outer planet sort of.
Well, and the other thing is that I just think that after Deep Space Nine, there was, and apparently he did return to did he? Q's courtroom. Apparently he did in All Good Things. I don't remember that. Okay, he did. That's fine. Great. Okay, I stand corrected. I apologize. He did, apparently. Because a lot of people were screaming that. But the thing is after Deep Space Nine and after Voyager, you have two factions that exist. You have the battle-hardened captains and Starfleet officers that were really born of war. Because Starfleet was just getting wiped out, right? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No. I was just agreeing because they basically had to be trained as actual soldiers, not explorers.
Yeah, and the explorers, a lot of them got killed. A lot of the front line at the very beginning just got completely wiped out. So you have Starfleet under command of a lot of people who are just used to being war and being soldiers. And then you would have a civilian populace and some Starfleet, those who did survive, who remember that Starfleet was a science operation, right? It was to explore and find new civilizations. And so you have two different ideologies and really fighting for the soul of what Starfleet and the Federation really is. Because I'm sure there's going to be a ton of people, especially if you lived on, say, Beta Z, that think that Starfleet should probably be pretty militaristic. And then you have those who think that, Starfleet should be used as a military when necessary, but should go back to just being explorers. And I think that would cause a lot of consternation, a lot of issues.
Yeah, and then like I said, if you couple that with talking about civilian unrest, of like the Romulan crisis, And I mean, Picard, I wish had given us a little bit more of what's going on with Starfleet at the moment, because we don't really have much of a sense on where Starfleet is, especially after the synth attack on Mars, because there's no real sense of like, if you read the novel, like, wow, that drastically hurt Starfleet going forward, because which logistically we could talk about that, but like the main like point of that novel, there's even a point made in the novel that like by going to help the Romulans and doing this big shift, it drastically changes Starfleet's mission for the next few decades. It just all becomes focused on this, and then even after the Romulan crisis has been dealt with, they have to spend the next few years just dealing with that, and then to have their like ship making capability, cut by a third if there's or something like that. It's a drastic hit, and then you couple that this like soldiers versus believing exploration side of Starfleet, and then couple that with civilian unrest. I mean, there's a perfect storm of creating a civil war that you could do that would be that would just be super multifaceted. And it's also kind of why, sorry to get into my pitch, but it's also why I would really just love a more like a West Wing style political style Star Trek at some point. I think that would always be much more like dealing with the Federation and Federation Council sort of.
I don't think these new writers can handle it.
No,
I
don't think they're interested in it.
Well, I don't think they can do it well. I mean, you and me can disagree on that if you want, but I don't think they could write it. I don't think they could write it West Wing like. I don't think they have that ability. I really don't. I think West Wing was excellently done. And I honestly, I think maybe the writers of Deep Space Nine could do it. But that's something very, very hard to do. To write it in a way that is,
would like actually deal with
that deals with it, but does it in a way that is convincing and not preaching to the choir. Because one of the biggest issues, and Matt Graham, I'm going to come back and I'm going to rant at you for a couple of minutes, but hold on, because you just got saved by Jessie. But don't worry, Matt. We're gonna address your comment. The West Wing, and then what is it right now? It's called not the stateroom, but it's about a news.
The newsroom?
Is it? Yeah, maybe it's the newsroom. I hate the newsroom. I cannot stand. Yeah, it's called the newsroom. The West Wing and the newsroom. The newsroom writes and has cinematography. It is some of the best drama on planet Earth, in my opinion, right now. And I can't stand it because they push so much that I disagree with, and they do it in such an excellent way that it's a wonderful piece of writing. It's a great way to give your opinion, but not insult people. Because I think Discovery did that. I think Discovery gave opinions and insulted people, whereas the newsroom can push an agenda, but not insult people. And I don't think the Star Trek writers currently can do it. I just don't.
I don't disagree. I mean, as much as I know we disagree about Discovery and the quality there, but I don't think necessarily that Discovery is like at all close to the level of writing of West Wing, nor do I think that any of the writers on the show have enough like political writing background to be able to do that. And you need to bring in someone like, if I was going to pick someone who would like within the Trek world already, who I think would be a great person to pull for a show like that, you could either get you could get Keith R. DeCandido from the novel, who actually wrote Articles of the Federation, which would be a great one. But Una McCormack would be a fantastic person to actually lead a show like that. I would totally be down for an Una McCormack led Federation series. But yeah, I agree. I don't think we could argue about the quality, like the specific quality of the writer and the preachiness of the writers, because that's a whole other topic and avenue to go down. But even regardless of their quality, I don't think that they're necessarily political writers in the sense of like they able to write like really in-depth geopolitical conflict on that level.
Well, the problem is I don't necessarily have a problem. I don't have an issue with someone writing something I don't disagree with. As I said, I think the newsroom is just it's genius from everything I've seen. It is, and the West Wing. The West Wing is genius, and there are things in the West Wing I don't necessarily agree with. But I agree with a lot of what's in the West Wing. But there's some things I don't agree with. But the point is doing it in a way that's not insulting, and doing it in a way where the person feels like their side is heard, and then you can change minds with it. Because that's one of the things that frustrates me. Star Trek has always generally been about trying to change minds in one way or another. And I think that when they're subtle about it, they do a lot better job in changing minds. And that's why it frustrates me to see things that are just blatant and just trying to portray something, but doing it in a way that only hurts the cause. And I'll give you an example. So when you had, what's his name? Lorca. And Lorca, so I don't know if it was the writers or the execs, but Lorca was said by
Make
someone,
the Empire great again.
yeah, was said by somebody in the executive office or exec for Star Trek was said, he's supposed to be Trump. And again, like you said, make the Empire great again. Here's the thing. Lorca was going up against a person who ate aliens, who destroyed Kronos and then killed those who were trying to escape, who just did all kinds of horrible things. So the person he was fighting was as bad, if not worse, than who he was. And so if you're trying to make Lorca Trump, you're just telling me that Trump is fighting as evil things. You're not really helping me out here. That just makes Trump, and also it's just Trump might be, and I don't want to get political. I'm sorry, guys. Don't talk about it in chat all that much, but Trump may be racist. He may be the most horrible person on the planet. I don't want to get into it, but let's just assume that's what they're saying, and that's fact. He doesn't eat like illegal immigrants. So we can't prove that he's ever eaten illegal immigrant. So you see what I'm saying? If you make it too much of a parody, it's easy to argue against, and it just makes people not believe your side. And that's what I hate.
Well, yeah, and I actually completely agree with you. And I actually did. I have a couple points to make. Just one on the specific Lorca one would be with Lorca. I agree with you. I thought they really missed an opportunity with him, because I think that they did try to go down there like, all right, again, and the Trump metaphor, and just kind of head down that road. Because what was interesting about his arc that I thought was fascinating was like he was someone who was evil and perhaps irredeemable, but there was opportunities for him to have grown. Like, for example, in that episode where where he's revealed to be, there's a scene where he literally calls up the Discovery crew and says, if I have a lot of respect for all of you, and if I believe that you can reach an ideal, have you join me. And he's saying that to Saru, and he's literally saying to Saru, a person who in his universe is a person that they literally use for. He's saying, I respect you.
Right.
That's an interesting character development for me. Like how would he have been changed by his exposure to the Federation? Like, I don't think he would have been good, right. But they had opportunities for him to show like nuance within the portrayal, and actually do like an example of what specifically we're saying, of being like, maybe we're not going to move the needle to make like, horrible people become fully great people, but like exposing people to like the Federation and utopias and like positive measures might move the needle a little bit. But no, they sort of like fell back on Lorca being evil.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting you. I don't mean to. You go.
No, you're fine. It's also, there's delay, so it's okay. The other thing I will say is I will push back a little bit on the idea that stories need to be subtle in their messaging in order to be effective. And this isn't me arguing necessarily for the way Discovery and Picard do it. And actually, I would actually say that like that the like direct political messages of Picard and Discovery are actually way more muddled than people would think they are. Like people point to like stuff like, Lorca or I'm trying to like, even think of like another more specific, like Klingons being Trump supporters in season 1 of being like very political messages, but like I'm just sort of like, yeah, but that's sort of on the nose stuff. And there are like other political themes in Picard and Discovery that I think are really interesting that they don't really delve into, that I think they actually have opportunity to. A good example would for Picard, there's a wonderful discussion of citizenship with the Borg cube, where we get this concept of the Borgs, the XBs, are citizens of the Romulan Empire. And they are treated like shit. They are treated like second-class citizens. They are treated really terribly. But they have to do it because it's the only way that they can get any semblance of their identity. And then you compare that with someone like Hugh, who in the show, they actually make a point of saying, like, I'm a Federation citizen, so I have certain rights that are protected. And he actually sacrifices those rights later on because he decides to fight against them. And that idea of like the power of citizenship and the importance of citizenship, I actually don't think is a subtle idea at all in terms of present day politics. But I think the show doesn't really delve into it. I mean, the Borg Cube storyline in general doesn't really get as evolved as it should be. That's an idea that, regardless of how overt it would, in fact, I would have rather to have been more overt, because I think it would have been a real interesting metaphor. And I think the thing that people, and I'll sort of wrap up my thought because I don't want to talk too long over you. I think the thing people get wrapped up in is like, I don't think politics of a show necessarily need to be subtle to be good. I just think that when you make the politics of something so directly one-to-one, that's where the problem is. I think when you're saying like, oh, Lorca is and you try to bend your story arc to fit that, that's where you lose the quality of the writing, because you're trying to make the natural evolution of your story somehow fit the evolution of the real world. Whereas you can tell political stories and be kind of overt about it, but you don't necessarily need to have it be like, all right, so the Romulan, Russians, and this is that, and da-da-da-da-da. Because like even, I mean, you can make that work every once in a while. Like Undiscovered Country kind of did that to a degree, with Russian and U.S. relations. But overall, you can have political discussions, but evolve it out of the natural conflicts of your world, as opposed to try to make your world naturally fit the politics of the real world. And I think that's sort of the distinction, because honestly, last point I'll make, and I'll shut up, the best show I saw last year was the most blatantly political, and that was Watchmen. I thought Watchmen, 2019's Watchmen, was, in my opinion, one of the best shows of last year. And it was also the most targetedly, blatantly unsubtle show. But I think that's because it arose naturally out of the world they presented, as opposed to trying to force the story to present day politics.
I think it comes down to, I think it may come down to our definition of subtle too. Something existing with reasonable points there. I don't know that that's necessarily subtle. I mean, I don't know that that's overt. Like the thing with the XBs, versus Hugh, and the differences in the way they're being treated, is I think there's more layers there than you even give it credit for as well. Like, for instance, the Romulans are the ones who rushed in and said, we're going to help you. And they're going out of their way to heal them and try to take all the Borg technology off. But they're doing it for their own purposes, too. You know, it looks like on the surface. So I think there's more to it as well that you could delve into. But like you said, that's drastically different than saying, here's Lorca and he's Trump, like they did. I don't. And
also, I should.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I think the problem with that storyline is not that there's not layered. I think there's so much you could delve into just within that plotline of the Borg Cube. I think my problem is not that there aren't layers or there's like not interesting dynamics. I think the big problem is that they tell it to us a lot of the time and not show us. Like there's never really all that many. There's only literally one scene and it's when it's like not justifiable, but like there's an impetus for it. Romulans beating the crap out of the XBs. The only scene of that is when Narissa lines them all up and is shooting them as she's interrogating. And I would have much rather have seen in like episode 2 or like the first episode that Hugh shows when he like is meeting with Soji. We like see a scene where they like encounter a Borg, like a Romulan, like nastily treat, like they go for lunch maybe, and Soji's just able to get like her food credits, but then the Romulan serving their food is like, oh, XB, get to the back of the line or something. Right. I mean, that it doesn't have to be that obvious, but like something like that, like them being missed and showing like the casual everydayness of that, and then I kind of have a grip on like, oh, this is sort of the things, but all we get of that storyline is like Hugh saying like, yeah, the Romulans definitely treat us like crap. And then we kind of move on from it to focus on the larger Picard story.
Right. Yeah, I mean, again, that goes back to what we were talking about as well, that they just weren't...
I think I lost you there for a second.
No, you still here?
Yeah, I'm good. I got you. You're back.
Right. You've been coming in and out. It's not horrible, but a little bit has been coming in and out. So...
I think my internet, because I had a problem on one of my streams last night. I just need to boost my internet data. I think because so many people are home in my area, I just need to pay more to get better internet at the moment.
I mean, again, I think the definition of subtle is a little bit because something existing or something being there that you can see. It's just when you're overt or you're trying to push. You're doing it in bad faith, I guess is another way of saying it. Because I think the Lorca was done in bad faith, in my opinion.
No, I agree.
One thing completely unrelated to you, and I'm sure Matt Graham is not here. If you'll just give me a little bit of leeway, just a little bit of rope.
Oh, please go, because I was very curious what you want.
So Matt was, and I'm just going to address the idea, Matt. As you know, it's not necessarily directed at you. You're just the person who said it, and I get this a lot. It's like, wow, I can't believe that you forgot in the series finale that they were in the courtroom. That was just a huge part of that episode. There are 8 television series and 1 short-form companion series that make up the bulk of the Star Trek mythos. That includes the original series, animated series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, Discovery, Short Treks, and Picard. All the series in total amount to 773 episodes across 35 seasons of television. It's not even including any of the extra stuff that I've looked at, including the games or anything like that, or the books and stuff. I currently have over 700 videos. No, I don't. I'm sorry. I currently have over... Wow, that's a lot less than I thought. For 500 videos that meticulously break down generally just the Star Trek ethos, anywhere from the Dominion War to the Xindi War to the beginning of Picard. You'll forgive me if I forgot one fucking scene where he was in the court. I forgot specifically that was the most important part of Star Trek, was the fact that he was in the judge's chambers in the series finale. And I will be deleting my channel after this because I forgot the most important part of over 700 episodes. So if you'll forgive me for that, I will graciously appreciate it. Anyway, that is just a trigger of mine. I'm not mad at you, Matt, necessarily. Again, it's just the idea, because a lot of people, you get this too, I'm sure, right, Jesse? Where people are like, I can't believe you forgot that one piece of over 700 hours
in this one random fucking I mean, yeah, I get it literally every video.
Yeah, exactly. Don't you remember in season 7, episode 3 of Voyager, there was specifically one piece of dialogue that specifically
contradicted everything that you said?
Yeah, that your entire your video is based on. How did you not know season 7 episode 3 had that? Again, Matt, I'm not mad at you specifically. I'm just saying.
I mean, the thing to phrase that, I mean, I get that all the time, and I hate it when you didn't remember this? Well, clearly you're not a real Trek fan, or you're an idiot, or dumb. But if you phrase it as like, oh, there was this cool thing that was in this episode that maybe you should think that like pertains to what you're talking about, be like, oh yeah, that is cool. Like, phrase it in a way that not calling me an idiot.
Yeah, and Matt didn't do it bad at all. Matt didn't do it bad at all. Because there are people like that. They're just like, oh my God, do you even watch this? Did you know it's a series? Yeah, Matt didn't do it in a negative way at all. I'm just like, oh my God, man. Jesus,
Sorry, Matt.
That triggers the hell out of me because it's just over 700 episodes. All of them are 40 minutes a pop. I don't even want to know how many hours that is. But anyway.
Oh, dear God.
Yeah. Anyway, we said this is going to be a shorter one. I did have a topic I wanted us to talk about. I completely forgot about it, but I will remember what it is after this is done, which is why we're going ahead and doing this. But is there anything else you want to talk about before we got off? By the way, you guys, what is your thing? I always forget it. Is it Jessie Gender or what?
I mean, if you just look up Jessie Gender and you'll find my channel. That'll be the easiest way. I think Continuum shared it actually because Continuum is a wonderful. It's it's www.youtube.com/user/lost is my actual page. But if you just search Jessie Gender, JESSIE space GENDER, you'll find my my.
Right, and it'll be in the description too. But was there anything else you want to end it on, or are we done?
I mean, no. I mean, there's still tons more to talk about. I think, we should do this after the finale because I'm sure there'll be a ton to like pick apart between that and Discovery Season 3.
Yeah, we should get you, me, and Katwalski on to discuss it. That'd be fun.
That would be fun. That would actually.
We should
not that it wasn't fun to do this, but the three of us would be a lot of fun.
We should do a simulcast. That'd be fun. Do it from all of our things, all of our channels, and
I would love
all
that.
three running at the same time. We just need to make sure you're paying an unreasonable amount of money to your internet provider because that's how these things work, right?
Yeah, I gotta do it. So I'll just bite the bullet and then do it.
Yeah. All right, guys. So don't forget to check her out. It'll be in the description as well as there. And thanks for coming by. We'll see you on the next one.
Live long and prosper.